Wenn wir die Ausstellung The Craftocene von Superflux betreten und durch die 3 Räume schlendern, dann erfahren wir Superflux, also Anab Jain und John Ardan, als spekulative Archäologen. Sie stellen sich die Frage in ihren Arbeiten, welche Vorfahren werden wir sein? Und damit zusammenhängt natürlich auch die Frage, wie wollen und werden wir zukünftig leben? Und wie können wir die Zukunft durch unser Verhalten in der Gegenwart beeinflussen?
One of the things that we've been exploring in the work called Relics of Abundance is the idea that if we were to put a lens on our present from a far future, what might we find of ourselves? And I kind of think that there is a very seductive series of grand narratives that were sold to us, and there's been a capture of our imaginations that we've been led to believe that wanting more, wanting the latest gadget, getting the maximum number of likes, becoming influencers, this kind of sort of trajectory of capturing our imagination towards the singular goal of more has led us to this crisis of where we either feel that we have to keep moving towards this goal of growth, or there's just doom and gloom. There is no third way. And I think that's the work that we have been trying to do, is explore other possibilities.
How do we change from our current extractive model to one where we're seeing the world as something that cares for us and we care for it? And I think that it ultimately comes down to a change of heart. I think that we currently try and create social change through implementing of policies and educational programs, and I think that's all well and good. It's part of the solution, but unless we really fundamentally change the way that we relate to ourselves, the world, to the wider ecosystem, we're always going to be looking for ways around these laws and legislation. And I think if we change that way, we have in a way a spiritual revival that really connects us with the world, ourselves, our kinfolk, then I think naturally we'll start to change the way that we relate to the world. We won't need these external rules, because you don't need somebody to tell you not to put your hand in the fire. It's obvious. And I think with that change of heart will naturally come a change of action.
Die Ausstellung trägt ja den Titel The Craftocene. Das ist ein Begriff, den Studio Superflux entwickelt hat als Gegenposition zum Begriff des Anthropozän. Und The Craftocene soll uns eigentlich wieder auch zurückführen auf ein mehr als menschliches Verständnis. Das zeigt auch die eine Arbeit, Refuge of Resurgent, was man so in etwa übersetzen könnte als Refugium für Erneuerung. Und da geht es genau darum, es ist ein sogenanntes Multispecies Dinner, es ist ein Tisch bereitet auf den Trümmern der von den Menschen hinterlassenen Welt. Das ist genau der Kern von Craftocene, dass wir, und wir meint nicht nur die Menschen, sondern alle, mehr als menschlichen Wesen einbezogen, dass wir zusammenkommen müssen, wie wir aus den Relikten der Vergangenheit eine lebensfähige Zukunft bauen können.
Some of the things that have inspired us are the collections of the Welt Museum, and this particular mask that the Orinoco community in Venezuela would wear at times when they want to embody the bee and call the wild boar for hunting purposes. But it had so much more. It was a threshold object that connected them to the spirit of the forest and connected them to all the other species around them. So in a way, the Refuge for Resurgence, the project is about embodying that relationship that invites us to develop a deeper spiritual connection with all our interconnected ecological systems and our different species. So It's about using what Carl Jung might call spirit of the depths, myth, storytelling, all the kind of ideas that will help us spiritually rewire ourselves to be able to become open again, an open relationship that invites other species, other sort of entities that we might not even be able to name, that we know exist, that have a role to play in the way the world is today. So I think one of the key ideas of this show is to acknowledge that there are sensory languages and dialects that connect us to other species and other ecosystems all around us. And it is about how can we re-remember these sensory languages.
So one of the main approaches of the studio is to take the future from something that is abstract and represented through numbers and reports and these kind of very heady abstractions, and to embody that. But also we want to prototype. We want to find ways to make the future tangible, to find material ways to get to grips with the subject. We tend to think of our cognition as just the kind of that tip of the iceberg, that bit of logic and of vision, but there's a whole sensory intelligence that we've evolved into. And I think that by creating these environments, by creating these things that are tactile and that you can touch, you then start to get a deeper understanding of the possibilities that lay ahead of us.
In ihrer spekulativen Design- oder Archäologiepraxis passt Superflux natürlich sehr gut auch in ein ethnologisches Museum. Dadurch, dass Superflux eine Art von spekulativer Archäologie betreiben, zeigen sie eigentlich etwas ganz Wesentliches auf, weil die Praktiken aus der Vergangenheit wieder relevant werden können für die Zukunft.